Welcome to today's podcast.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Today we'll cover these key vocabularies: sieve as a noun, sieve as a verb, slice, spice, squash, and squeeze, with detailed definitions and 20 vivid examples each to help you master them. Sieve, noun. A sieve is a utensil with a mesh or perforated bottom used to separate wanted elements from unwanted material, such as draining liquids or sifting dry ingredients.
She poured the cooked rice into the fine mesh sieve to let excess water drip away before fluffing it with a fork.
He tapped the side of the metal sieve to shake flour through its holes, ensuring a lump-free cake batter.
They used a sieve to skim foam from the surface of the stock, achieving a clear broth for the soup.
She lined the sieve with cheesecloth to strain homemade yogurt into thick Greek-style consistency.
He dropped tea leaves into the small sieve and dipped it in hot water to brew a single cup.
She held the sieve over the bowl as she whisked powdered sugar to dust the pastry evenly.
He sieved chia seeds through the sieve to remove oversized hulls before cooking porridge.
She shook this sieve rapidly to sift cocoa powder atop the dessert plate for a refined presentation.
He rinsed quinoa in the sieve under cold water to remove its naturally bitter coating.
She placed the blueberry compote in the sieve to catch seeds, creating a silky fruit coulis.
He used the sieve to drain tiny pasta shapes, ensuring no bites slipped through the perforations.
She tapped the sieve to sift powdered matcha into her latte for an even green foam.
He passed the berry puree through the sieve to discard skins before adding to gelatin.
She lined up 3 sieves of different mesh sizes to sort sand in her children's science project.
He grated soap bars and dusted the shavings in the sieve to remove excess dust before mixing.
She shook the sieve with cinnamon sugar to coat donuts uniformly in the topping.
He used a large sieve as a makeshift colander to drain boiled vegetables when the sink was clogged.
She stored her set of nested sieve in the cabinet to save space and prepare multiple sifting tasks.
He found that gently tapping the sieve against the bowl rim helped dislodge stubborn lumps.
Sieve, verb. To sieve means to pass a substance through a sieve to separate or refine its components.
She decided to sieve the cake flour twice to ensure it was exceptionally light before baking.
He sieved the hot stock to remove impurities, resulting in a clear consommé.
They sieved the berry mixture before adding it to the panna cotta for a seedless finish.
She sieved powdered sugar over the soufflé folds to add a delicate sweet topping.
He sieved the almond meal to eliminate coarse bits before making macarons.
She always sieved spice blends before adding them to soups to avoid gritty textures.
He sieved blended chickpeas, leaving behind coarse pulp until the hummus was silky.
She sieved dry ingredients together in one bowl to evenly distribute baking soda.
He sieved the blended tomatoes to remove skins and seeds before simmering the sauce.
She sieved quinoa after cooking to drain and then rinse any leftover sapinin.
He sieved the melted chocolate to remove lumps before tempering it for coating.
She sieved the coffee through a fine mesh strainer when her French press malfunctioned.
He sieved flour and cocoa in the same motion to mix and aerate the brownie batter.
She sieved the crumbs to separate fine dust that would act as cake stabilizer.
He sieved the mashed potatoes through a ricer-style sieve for ultra-smooth mash.
She sieved the pumpkin puree to remove fibrous strands for a silky pie filling.
He sieved the cold brew concentrate to ensure no coarse grounds remained in the pitcher.
She sieved her bath salts to break up any large clumps before packaging them.
He sieved his homemade almond meal to guarantee a consistent texture for macarons.
Slice, verb, noun. As a verb, slice means to cut into thin, typically flat pieces. As a noun, a slice is one such piece.
She used a sharp knife to slice the tomato into uniform rounds for her sandwich.
He layered each slice of eggplant in the casserole dish, brushing them with olive oil first.
They sliced the cheese extra thin to ensure even melting on the burger.
She served a slice of roast beef cold, accompanied by her signature horseradish sauce.
He sliced the baguette diagonally to create long, crispable pieces for crostini.
She placed a slice of lemon over the fish fillet before baking to infuse citrus aroma.
He sliced the pepper thin to distribute mild heat evenly in his stir-fry.
She topped her salad with a slice of avocado, adding creamy texture and healthy fats.
He taught her to slice watermelon against the rind for perfect triangular servings.
She pierced each slice of potato with a fork before baking to ensure crisp edges.
He sliced the mushrooms paper-thin to fold seamlessly into his omelet.
She offered a generous slice of birthday cake to each guest with chocolate ganache.
He sliced the sushi rolls into even bite-sized pieces for his guests to pick up easily.
She draped a slice of prosciutto over her melon wedge for a classic sweet-savory bite.
He sliced the onions into rings to layer them on top of his Philly cheesesteak.
She served a slice of quiche warm, accompanied by a side of mixed greens.
He sliced the bread just before serving to maintain its airy crumb.
She arranged each slice of apple in a fan pattern on her tart for visual appeal.
He sliced the ginger root thinly to add to his hot tea for soothing relief.
She enjoyed a slice of cucumber, lightly salted, as a refreshing palate cleanser. Spice, noun, verb. As a noun, a spice is a seed, fruit, root, bark, or other plant substance used mainly for flavoring food. As a verb, to spice means to season with spices.
She added a pinch of ground spice cinnamon to her coffee for a warming aroma.
He reached for the star anise spice to infuse his poaching liquid with licorice notes.
They labeled each jar of spice, clearly to avoid mixing up cumin and coriander.
She loved the complex flavor that the spice, cardamom, brought to her rice pudding.
He taught her how to toast whole spice cloves before grinding to amplify their essential oils.
She stored her spice rack near the stove for quick access during cooking.
He used a mortar and pestle to crush spice peppercorns for a freshly ground condiment.
She decided to spice the curry by adding extra chili flakes for a bolder kick.
He suggested to spice the apple compote with nutmeg and allspice for an autumnal treat.
She prepared a homemade spice blend of paprika, garlic powder, and dried thyme for chicken rub.
He learned that to spice soups at the end preserves the bright notes of delicate spices.
She admired how the spice, turmeric, turned her rice a golden color.
He opted to spice his hummus with smoked paprika for a smoky twist.
She weighed out each spice precisely on her kitchen scales for consistent results.
He preferred to spice his chocolate truffles with a hint of cayenne for subtle heat.
She displayed her antique spice box inherited from her grandmother with pride.
He found that black pepper, the most common spice, lifted nearly every savory dish.
She learned that to spice the marinade, a short infusion of spices and oil before adding meat was ideal.
He removed the whole spice bay leaf after simmering the stew to avoid unpleasant texture.
She titrated her spice levels slowly, tasting after each addition to reach perfect balance. Squash, verb, noun. As a verb, to squash means to crush or press something into a flatter shape. As a noun, squash refers to a family of vegetables with thick skins and fleshy interiors.
She gently squashed the garlic cloves with the flat side of her knife to release their oils before mincing.
He cooked acorn squash, halves face down to steam, and softened the flesh before scooping it out.
They decided to squash leftover tomatoes with a fork for a rustic sauce base.
She pureed butternut squash into a smooth soup, adding cream and nutmeg for richness.
He squashed the berries lightly to release juices for the summer fruit pie filling.
She diced zucchini squash into small cubes to sauté quickly in olive oil and garlic.
He used his palm to squash the cooked potatoes when making gnocchi dough.
She roasted spaghetti squash until it fell into delicate strands perfect for a low-carb pasta alternative.
He squashed the bread rolls together to test their freshness before serving.
She mashed sweet potato squash with maple syrup and a pinch of sea salt for a side dish.
He tried to squash his hat to fit under the low ceiling in the cellar.
She cubed yellow squash into her ratatouille, layering it between eggplant and peppers.
He squashed the can gently before opening to avoid a sudden spray of its contents.
She trimmed the ends off the zucchini squash before slicing it into ribbons for lasagna.
He squashed the empty soda can into a flat disc for recycling.
She shredded summer squash into her pancake batter for a moist texture and subtle sweetness.
He called the abrupt slowdown a momentary squashing of the traffic flow on the highway.
She stuffed spaghetti squash with ricotta and spinach for a gluten-free entree.
He demonstrated how to squash the dough gently to deflate large air pockets before shaping.
She served roasted squash, cubes drizzled with honey and a sprinkle of thyme. Squeeze, verb, noun. As a verb, to squeeze means to apply pressure to extract liquid or compress something. As a noun, a squeeze refers to a small amount of liquid obtained or the act of applying pressure.
She squeezed the lime half over her taco to add a bright, tangy finish.
He used a cloth to dry the pan, giving it a firm squeeze to remove every last drop of water.
They added a squeeze of orange juice to the vinaigrette for a hint of citrus sweetness.
She gave the sponge a hard squeeze to remove excess soap before scrubbing the countertop.
He described a tight squeeze with his daughter as they said goodbye at the airport.
She used her hands to squeeze the avocado flesh into a bowl for guacamole.
He requested just a light squeeze of garlic from the press to avoid overpowering the dish.
She took a squeeze of ketchup from the bottle directly onto her burger.
He realized his wallet felt smaller after giving a surprising squeeze to his bank account this month.
She instructed him to squeeze the sponge gently onto the window, leaving a thin layer of cleaner.
He enjoyed the first squeeze of freshly brewed orange juice each morning for a vitamin boost.
She demonstrated how to squeeze the pastry bag to pipe frosting with consistent pressure.
He noted the lemon squeeze balanced the sweetness in the berry compote perfectly.
She felt the tight squeeze in her hand when testing the firmness of the ripe peach.
He needed a squeeze of soy sauce in his stir-fry to deepen its savory notes.
She asked for a gentle squeeze of mustard on her sandwich for just a hint of tang.
He demonstrated the correct squeeze on the bottle for even drops of oil into the salad.
She measured a single squeeze of garlic paste to ensure flavorful but not overpowering curry.
He described the final squeeze in the lemon squeezer as yielding every last drop before discarding the rind. We hope these vivid demonstrations help you feel confident using sieve, slice, spice, squash, and squeeze in your everyday conversations and cooking adventures.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Join us next time for more vocabulary insights.
Goodbye and happy learning!